Hi, I'm Anne Batley Burton, Champagne Lady. Welcome back to show number 4 in the 3rd series of Keeping Up with Champagne Lady. Yes, I am Champagne Lady. That's my nickname and my business. And I hope you can keep up with me as I travel New Zealand introducing my champagne jacquard to restaurants, supermarkets, liquor outlets and bars. My biggest pleasure is meeting lots of people and giving you the chance to enjoy this beautiful champagne. But before we go any further, just a little bit of history about my champagne jacquard. Suffice to say, it's the real deal. Its origins are the French Champagne region, centred around Reims, 144 kilometres northeast of Paris. On the show tonight, I'd like to welcome Janice Willis from Elderly Assist. As you know, my father, Bert Batley, recently passed away. And my brother and I were discussing how we can best manage the estate. His house needs clearing out, 97 years old. Boy, that's a lot of stuff. So Janice from Elderly Assist is here with me tonight, and she's going to give me some advice how we should best proceed with sorting out Dad's estate. She's an expert on it. Janice, thanks so much for coming on the show today. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Anne. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, as you know, I lost my darling dad not so long ago, Bert Batley. He was a wonderful father, absolutely amazing, and it was such a difficult time, you know. Yeah. We had 4 years of him living at home but with care after a stroke, and sadly he battled on so well. He was incredible, and mentally he was wonderful, but physically he was just unable to do the things that he used to do, and they gave him so much pleasure. So, you know, no more woodworking, no more design on his computer, no more driving around the countryside. And he was still pretty good at giving instructions, though.
Oh, yes. Often the last thing to go.
Exactly. So I was with my brother a few days ago, and we were talking about what we're going to do with the house and whether we were going to keep it or whether we were going to clear it out and rent it out or whatever. But it's so difficult. There are 97 years of memories. Dad was 97 when he passed away. You can imagine. Yeah. And a person who's a doer as well, he had huge amounts of things there. And, you know, we really need some help in clearing that out, but at the same time, we want to make sure that all those special things are preserved. But we just don't want the whole grind of packing things up and selling things off and cleaning up the house. So I've heard that you're absolutely wonderful at all this, and you're an expert. So
thank you, Anne.
I want to hear what you think we should do.
Well, we've worked with a number of families in your situation that have lost their loved ones, and often people have busy lives and they don't want to miss anything with going through their parents' estate. So we can come alongside you and help you by inventorying and come and visit the home, inventory the things that are there, and talk to you and your family about the things that they'd like to keep and the things that they'd like to get rid of, and by way of either charity or selling things, because in most homes there are things that have still got life in them but we can't necessarily sell them. But we have connections in all sorts of parts of society where people would love things, even like plastic ice cream containers, you know, can go to a useful area like schools and what have you. But for the things that are of real value that your family have, we can, and they decide that they don't want them, we can sell them, and we sell them through a variety of ways, through high-end dealers and auction houses or Trade Me or traders. And when we sell anything that from the estate, we don't take a commission. Everything we get for it, you get for it, and we'll give you sales summaries. But often it's just very hard for the family to think about the amount that's in the home. So sometimes if we come along and we'll do an inventory, we can take pictures, and sometimes the beneficiaries don't live in the area. So we can send photos and we can talk with you and with the family about how you'd like to dispose of things.
Yes, well, I like the idea when you were talking about the charities, because I'm a bit like my father, and oh God, I'd hate to think what anyone will have to do to sort out my affairs, because I've managed to fill up about 3 houses full of stuff. It's terrible, and I probably will end up with a lot of Dad's things, because he had a lot of nice furniture that I actually imported for him from Italy years ago, and so I, obviously like that, but goodness knows where I'll put it.
Yeah.
but also the charity side of it, because one thing I cannot stand is something being wasted or thrown away. I would just like to feel, even with things of my own, even now, you know, I've got far too many clothes, but I don't want them just to be chucked away. I want them to be appreciated by somebody else, and that makes you feel good. You think, that's great. Even if you give it to them, I know that somebody is getting pleasure and it benefiting from what we've got. And you know, Dad had a lot of nice clothes, a lot of which he has already given away, but he's got a lot of nice things and things that no one else in the family fits. And you think, oh, that beautiful pink linen jacket that we got in Oxford Street in London, you know, you think, oh God, who's going to get that? And I look at my husband, who's about 3 times the size of Dad, you know, and my brother would never wear them, not his thing at all. So, you know, if you can have access to people who are going to really enjoy things, it would be wonderful.
Yes, a lot. We actually do a lot of estates for ladies, or even home clearances for ladies that are going into retirement villages, and they have some beautiful clothes, and often a lot of those we donate to Dress for Success, which is a wonderful charity helping women get back on their feet and into the workforce, and not being able to buy clothes, and you know, handbags and shoes we give to them. So there's a lot of what we call unknown and quiet charities that don't quite get the support of others. For instance, there's a church that we work with that gives spectacles up to the missionaries to give them out in the islands and things like that. So there's a lot of, you know, unknown resources that when we talk to our clients about them, they're thrilled, because they would much rather them go to a good home than be sold, even in some cases. But obviously there's a lot of furniture and belongings in your dad's home that you might want to transfer to your home, and then again there might be some things in your home that we might need to sell for you, and there's a swap to make space. Exactly. Yes. But I think it's just, you know, having my team are very sensitive and kind, and they'll work with you, because, you know, it draws a lot of emotion when you're going through your dad's home and having to make decisions over things. The other thing that we can do is that we can ship things throughout the country if you've got, you know, if you talked about your brother, but if you've got further distant family members who've indicated, oh, they would love such and such, but how are we going to get it to Christchurch, or how are we going to get it to Dunedin? We can ship those things. We can even ship things overseas for family members. We've sent China and what have you. We've got very good packing companies that will pack internationally, and it's just great because the family go, oh, you know, how are we going to do this? But we can just break it up, do it bit by bit, and having that inventory when people come from large homes with a large amount of possessions or memorabilia, then it just makes it easier for you to go through and do it bit by bit. We also we can take photos of things, as I said, but all of your special things that we find along the way, the letters, the personal photographs, we'll box all of those for you in different type of boxes, photo albums, you know, anything that is particular, and you'll be able to go through that at a later time. The letters, when it's not, you know, quite as raw. You just want to know that they're safe, and we're very careful about all of those personal items for you to do. Also, we'll get rid of financial documentation through confidential destruction bins, and not just put out for anybody to see. So we're very careful about maintaining your dad's confidentiality and just looking after with trust those things.
That's very important. I was just laughing when you said that, because my poor mother, she passed away about 8 years ago now, and I have still got all her checkbox, which have probably gone back for about however long since they had checks. I don't know how long that is. But I've still got those, and I've still got all her bank statements. I mean, really, it's obviously I have a bit of a problem with letting go. That's quite obvious. But it is quite funny when you think about it, isn't it? And you don't need, and you don't want it. We once, actually, years ago, had a situation where someone was organising some legal things for us, for our business, and I don't know what happened, but all the stuff turned up, strewn all around the street somewhere, and somebody, it had all blown out of a rubbish bin or whatever, it wasn't us who'd done it, it was this person who was handling it. And he'd gone overseas or whatever, disappeared, and he just dumped all our confidential stuff. And anyway, we got some of it back. Not that we particularly wanted it, but we certainly didn't want it disseminated around the community.
No, we're very, very careful in those things, because the other thing, and that we do find over and over again with people's deceased estates, is we always find things of value. Either, a lot of our elderly people hide money. For many of our elderly clients, they don't go to the bank very often, or they're not still very confident with FPOS and what have you, so they take out often a large amount of cash and then hide it around the house and then forget where they've put it. So
you split open the mattresses? Is that what?
No, not quite, but we have got many funny stories where my team are working and find things. One time we found a whole lot of $20 bills and a piece of paper with a staple and a bank rubber stamp, 1984 or something like that. So when we do that, and if there isn't a client like you, we just call the lawyer and put it straight into their trust account. But we've often found jewellery. We found some jewellery once high up in a pantry, and the daughter said, I think Mum was cleaning out the pantry. She said she lost her jewellery.
Oh, no.
They made an insurance claim, and we were able to return the jewellery to the daughters, and because it was such, you probably may not have had a huge value, but the sentimental value,
course.
and they had thought that was lost, and lost to them. So that's really lovely. We're very thorough, we're very detailed, and sometimes amidst a time of such grief, it's good to be able to provide some light in the storm, for the family to return these things that they perhaps the family had been looking for them for years in the house. Well, where did Dad put that?
That's
he put
right.
it in a safe place, but now we've been able to find it. So
funny,
that's good.
because with Dad, I bought him these beautiful diamond and onyx cufflinks years ago, and anyway, he always put them in a particular spot. It was in his woodworking room, would you believe it? And he'd stuck it under something, and he said to me, now, if anything happens to me, those cufflinks you gave me are underneath this piece of equipment. And so that was that. And it was a good place to hide it, because nobody would go searching for anything of value in this room, which was just jam-packed with stuff. And then a while ago, it must have been about a year and a half ago, I said to Dad, just, because I was thinking, just in case he starts forgetting things or something happens, I said, I've had a look for those cufflinks, because he left them to my husband. Had a look for those cufflinks, and they're not there. And he said, oh, but they've got to be there. And I said, well, they're not. And he said, well, I can't imagine where else they would be. I can't remember doing anything else with them. So I thought, oh, God, they've either been taken or, he's just lost them. Something's happened. And then I searched and searched, had a brainwave about, must have been about a month later, and I thought, what was he wearing? What would he have been wearing those cufflinks with? Sure enough, I went through and I found the jolly things in the pocket of the jacket. And he'd obviously taken them off, popped them in his pocket, and taken the jacket off or whatever. And I thank God, I said, Dad, I've found them. But that's the sort of thing.
Yes,
that will probably
sure
turn
that
up.
we go through pockets. We go through all pockets onto, and in fact, one time we went through pockets and we found a set of teeth in the pockets.
Oh, you're joking.
But they weren't false teeth; they were tooth by tooth by tooth, and we were like, and because the girl put her hand in the pocket, she thought they were knuckle bones or something like that. So we've got lots of stories, and of the things that we find, but we are thorough. You have to be, because your dad was brought up in a generation where often his parents were children of the Depression.
That's
and so
right.
they were thought, they were so careful with their possessions, and they kept everything. So as a consequence, because they kept everything, it keeps me in business, because when we're going through elderly people's homes, they do have so many possessions. But it's just great that we can find a good home for them all.
It is, isn't it? So one other thing that concerns me, what about the pets? Because I have the New Zealand Cat Foundation, and I'm regularly getting people coming to me, and vets as well, who will phone me and they'll say, oh, look, we're in a bit of a spot here. Mum's gone into a rest home. They won't allow her to take her cat. We thought we'd rehome it, but we can't find anyone to take it. It's an older cat. the only alternative is to put it down because this might be the children, we can't take it because we've got this or that or whatever their excuse is often, to be honest. And sometimes even the vet will phone me and say, look, this is terrible. This is a really healthy, lovely cat and the kids have brought it to be put down. This is not good. Will you take it? And the cat could be anything from sort of 12 to 19 years old. We've even got a 19-year-old, would you believe? And that doesn't mean I want every person calling me to take their mother's cat, by the way, so just remember that. We are full. But we have done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Now, what about situations like that? If they're moving, are you able to sort of try and help people find somewhere to place their animals, or if they die?
We haven't actually. That hasn't
We
actually
need
come
to
up
think
for
about
us.
that.
Yeah. What I do know is that we did have one client who had a little kitten that had arrived on site only a few weeks before we were doing work on the property, and we had a lot of skips on the property in that instance, and this little kitten used to keep jumping into the skip.
Oh,
and
no.
on that occasion, one of my workers adopted this
Oh,
little
that's
kitten,
good.
so that was the only one that we've really had. We haven't had many of that, but I guess we would probably look at some of the cats places that actually do adopt out cats. We
Yes.
probably would need to talk to them, but
Yes, we do
yeah,
that, but as I said, we don't want to be any more inundated than we already are, but there are quite a few rescue organisations. So that could be something else you could add to your
of trying to find homes, certainly. I know we always have a laugh about this particular worker of mine. We say you mustn't take any more cats because but it's every time we do a job we learn something more, or we have to be resourceful and find homes for this and how we send this. But I've got a great group of contractors that work for me, and it's incredible the things that they find answers to for some of our clients' possessions. We recently had to get rid of a sauna, find a home for a sauna, which we thought they were likely to leave in the home, but she wanted to sell it, so we had to remove it and take it apart and put it back together and sell it. So I'm confident for most situations that we can find a way through them, but because I also do work with hoarders, a lot of families who come to me whose parents have left their homes, they've just kept everything, so it's beyond just a lot of possessions.
Yes.
It's the fact that we need to go through, and we do work with a lot of hoarders, and slowly, piece by piece, getting the home taken apart basically for sale, and there's a lot to remove in those situations. So
there would be. Well, when I think about my dad, he was, having been brought up in the Depression, he never wanted to throw anything out because he would always find a use for it. And people will say, just for God's sake, just dump it. But I must have a lot of my dad in me. In fact, I know I do, because I'm a bit like that, and I'm saying to my brother, we're not dumping it. Dad did this, and he had this, and that could be used for this, and I could use this up at the cat sanctuary, and I've got all these ideas, but I'm thinking, where do I put them? All this wood, Dad was always putting wood under the house next door, and because he was always building things. And rather than go and buy some more wood, which is quite expensive, he would make use of these bits and pieces that he had from various situations. So that's good, but on the other hand, it does make for a lot of things to clear out. But the interesting thing is, quite odd really, I suppose, because me being the female, but Dad left me all his woodworking gear. Because he knew my brother had absolutely no idea. Sorry, Don boy, but you don't. And at least he knows that me with the New Zealand Cat Foundation, that I'm always having things made, little shelters and things for the cats to walk on, and building. And so, of course, my farm manager, he will make good use of this equipment, so I've got to set it all up at the other property, and it's going to be fantastic. But it would be very daunting if you had to clear it all out.
You just don't know where to start. But it's incredible about how, since I've been on Face TV, lots of people have rung me and contacted me, if you get this, Janice, we collect this, we collect that, if you've got, and so we've just got resources where we can find homes for things, and it's great, because that's exactly what our clients' family want. They just don't want. Sometimes we do have to get skips, and sometimes we do have to remove rubbish, but wherever possible we do recycle and try and rehome things. So
I think it's a wonderful attitude too, because we shouldn't just be throwing everything away and wasting things, should we?
True.
I think it's
true.
marvellous. Janice, we've been talking about my dad most of the time, but what I'd like to know is, how did you start this? What gave you the idea to do it, and how successful is the business becoming, and how popular is it?
Oh, thank you, Anne. Yes, well, I started Elderly Assist 7 years ago. I basically had a friend she was in her 70s, and she was helping an elderly man in his 90s move back to family in Australia. And I remember being in this house, and I said, look, I'll come and help you. I'll do a garage sale on, all that I knew to do in those days. And as I had my head in a big, huge cupboard of Tupperware, I thought to myself, how do families do this when they haven't got family around, or if they're too busy? And I just thought, well, I wonder if there's a bit of a niche here. And so I looked, and at the time, there wasn't anybody doing this. And so I became the first person that started a business assisting elderly. And a few years after that, we kept getting friends and family of our elderly people saying, oh, look, would you do this service for us? But we're not elderly. And so we started Moving Assist. And then a few years after that, I started a company called Clutter Busters to work with people that had lots of clutter but didn't want to move home, but just wanted their homes clutter free. And that also morphed into a company that works with clinical hoarders. So
clinical hoarders, I like it.
I know. So that have so many possessions. So often, I just go to a normal person's home, I would say, and they say, oh, but we've got so much clutter and we're a bit embarrassed. And I go, look, you don't need to be embarrassed, because we've worked in homes with, belongings up to the ceiling and rubbish everywhere. So as I mentioned before, my team are very sensitive and very caring. I've got about 20 people that work for me, and we work predominantly in the Auckland market, but also Hamilton and the Bay of Plenty. And we just love what we do, really. We're very proud of our ratings on No Cowboys. And we just, I've got a large team, and they come from they all had full-time careers and kind of wanted to step out of that pressured lifestyle. So I've got people that are ex-cabin crew, freight forwarders, dental nurses, teachers, all sorts of people that work for me, predominantly part-time, but sometimes it gets extended to full-time. It just depends on how busy we are. But sadly, we're coming into a time of year where we're doing a lot more deceased estates, where elderly people tend to die over the winter months. So we're very busy, but it doesn't matter. We do really small jobs and we do really, really big homes. People become overwhelmed, and they haven't done. Often people that are power of attorneys or executives, they put their names down to do this because it's the right thing to do. But when it comes time to do it, it can be very overwhelming. So we just come alongside and just talk to them about what we can do, and it certainly helps take the stress away from many families.
Certainly would. But when you were talking about these other businesses, are you still operating those businesses, or have you sort of narrowed it down to just the elderly, or is it?
No, we do. Our biggest business is Elderly Assist, because for many of our elderly clients, they've been in their homes for a lot of years. Real estate agents will tell us that New Zealanders tend to move every 7 years, but for the elderly, many of them have been in their homes for 35, 40 plus years.
Well, Dad's been in his for about 55 years.
Yeah, so when it comes time to move, it'll often be, they don't want to move, but it'll be because they can't cope with the size of the property or the size of the grounds. Perhaps they're a woman on their own whose husband's passed away. So what's stopping them move is the mammothnesss of the task. So we'll just come along and just help them. We work a little bit each day, perhaps for a week, perhaps more than that. But no, we do. And then I guess with Moving Assist, it tends to be time poor people. Perhaps couples are working, they have children, they might have businesses. So we still do work right the way across. And we tend to morph a bit of the Elderly Assist into the Moving Assist, because even some of the elderly say, Janice, we really like what you do, but we don't like the name. So I said, that's all right. You can work under our Moving Assist, because it's the same staff, different uniform. But most people know us as Elderly Assist or Moving Assist, and when they find out we do Clutter Busters and anything else, it just...
Well, the funny thing about it is, I've got to just interject there, because that reminds me of something I read in the Herald, I think it was the Herald or the Sunday Star, anyway, whatever, in the newspaper. And someone wrote in and said they really objected to the media terminology when they would put in something like an elderly man of 65.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, wasn't that good? He said they really objected to being put in the elderly just because, why not say a man of 65?
Yes,
why are you automatically elderly because of a number? As Joan Collins always said, age is but a number unless you're a bottle of wine. So I love that.
Very good.
So good.
Yeah.
So they're quite right. Who wants to be called elderly just because you need a bit of help?
But you see, when I started, and when we started, it was there was such a property boom, and we were very, very busy, and we still are. One of the reasons that I started the business is just prior to that, I got made redundant a couple of times. I'd worked in a company for 10 years, and the CEO got removed, and then I lost my job, and then another position. So I got to the age where I thought, if I don't make something of myself now, if I don't do something that I can have complete control of. So, in the early days it was slower, but it's certainly busy now, and we just love what we do, and I love what I do. And every day I wake up and think, what's the phone going to bring today?
Yes.
So it's wonderful.
Well, that hunch of yours, Janice, certainly paid off, didn't it?
It did.
You're a living example of a success. And the one thing that I really love about that is that there's so many people out there who do just have a hunch and have an idea, but they're too frightened to put it into action.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that anybody out there who's got a hunch, go for it. Cheers. Here's to your hunch.
Thank you.
Wish you all the success.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful chat that I had with Janice. I have learned so much, and I know how my brother and I can best proceed with sorting out Dad's affairs. When I get back from France, we'll be on the phone to Elderly Assist, in particular Janice. See you next week. Cheers.